Welcome to a new Adventure Creator tutorial where we dive into unlocking a captivating feature for your players, the ability to personalize their game saves with custom names. Picture this, so you're crafting your masterpiece, and players start a sleek login screen, ready to imprint their unique mark on the gaming experience. They'll type in their chosen name, feeling empowered as it becomes the moniker that graces their save files every time they load your game. And you might wonder, well, sounds great, but how do I make this magic happen and do it without coding? Well, fear not, because I've traversed this path, conquered the obstacles, tinkered with various methods, delved into code, and explored Unity's UI elements until I found the perfect formula and emerged with a unique solution to share with you guys. Mind you, it was quite the journey, but the result was worth the effort. So I thought, why not create a tutorial to guide fellow developers through this customization adventure along with me to make implementing this customizable feature into your game simple and easily accessible to new adventure creator users. So let's dive in and turn your game into an immersive world where players feel right at home. Imagine this scene. This is what we hope to achieve. A login screen reminiscent of Windows, complete with a backdrop, a profile picture placeholder, and the essential input field for their chosen name, accompanied by their trusty Enter button. Now, to embark on this thrilling quest, we'll need to tweak Adventure Creator's default save menu. To do that, we need to ensure that it's part of your game setup. So if you opted for the default Adventure Creator menu during the new game wizard phase, you're on the right track. It should be nestled in your menu manager within the Adventure Creator window. If not, never fear, you can borrow it from the demo's menu manager asset by setting the asset file to demo_menu manager and copying the save menu into your project. And remember, always save and back up your work. It's the hero's rulebook for any game development journey. Let's start this journey with a tutorial scene that I've prepared featuring a character named Bugsy. So in this scenario, when the game begins, Bugsy wants to ask the player for their name. We'll add a cutscene to run on start when the scene loads to achieve this. To create a new cutscene, ensure that you have the Adventure Creator Game Editor window open. If you can't find it, you should be able to access it by clicking Adventure Creator from the top toolbar, then Editors, Game Editors. This should open the Adventure Creator Game Editor window, and I'm just going to dock it here on the right side beside my inspector panel. To start a cutscene that plays when we press play and start the scene, we will need to click on the Scene tab and then check out the section that says Scene Cutscenes. We can easily create a new OnStart Cutscene by clicking the little plus button beside the asset field. This will create a new cutscene game object in our game's hierarchy on the left side here, and we can click the little button beside it to see it in the ActionList editor. I find it helpful to keep this editor docked at the top middle of my screen beside the game and game views. Since I use it a lot with Adventure Creator, it makes it easy to access. Now, if you have a player already set up, that's great. If you don't have a player set up yet, don't even worry about it. You can do this without a character as well. For example, in my game example that I showed earlier, you can't see the main character within the scene, so the dialogue is set as a narration rather than speech coming directly from a character. So let's start by creating a new action in our action list. We'll set it to dialogue and play speech. If you have a player character, you can check the player line and drag your player character from the hierarchy panel into the asset file slot beside speaker. If not, just leave these blank and it'll appear as narration dialogue. In the line text box, let's just type, "Hi, I'm Bugsy. What's your name?" And if we press play, we should see the dialogue appear on our screen from the character. Once Bugsy asks the player their name, we want a little box to appear on the screen that lets the player put in their name and press enter. This will save the game and change their save slot to the custom text they input. So now we need to make this a new menu with an input text box, an enter button, and a cancel button to exit the user interface element. To make a new menu, we need to go into our Adventure Creator Editor window and click Menu, then scroll down a bit and click the Create New Menu button. In the new menu's properties, we'll call it Save Name. Now, to keep things simple, I'm just sticking with Adventure Creator as the source, but if you want a higher level of customization, you can select Unity UI Prefab to use a prefab game object for your menu, or Unity's UI in scene to create a custom menu in the hierarchy of your scene using Unity UI elements. Remember that both of these must be dragged into the asset file slots, and that's all an entirely separate tutorial. So With Adventure Creator set as the source, we're going to scroll down to Elements, select an input element, and click Add New. We'll set our new input element's name as input, make sure is visible is checked, and let's set the character limit to 25 characters because I have a super long name and I hate when stuff like this doesn't let me type my full name, but you can set this to whatever you'd like depending on your project. When players input their custom text, we also want them to be able to press enter and have the game save their input. We need to create a save button element to do this. Let's set the drop down to button and click the add new button. We'll call our new button save and set the click type to run action list. You can set the background, font color to whatever you'd like, and I'll set the position to relative to menu size and set the size to manual. Then you can just use the sliders to position it wherever you'd like on your screen. You can goof around with these values to get it looking exactly how you'd like. Now that we have our save button set up, we can go back into our input element and set the enter keys linked button to our save button element. Now, when players enter their name and hit enter on their keyboard, it'll be linked to our save button. But our save button isn't really set up to do anything yet. So lastly, we're going to make another button element and click add new. We'll call it cancel and make sure it's set to is visible, set the click type to crossfade, and set the menu to switch to our default save menu, and then you can goof around with any of the other properties as you wish. We've set up our custom save name menu, so now let's go back into our OnStart Cutscene action list and add a new node that is set to menu and change state. We'll set the change type to turn on menu and set the menu to turn on as our save name menu. When we play the game, we should have Bugsy ask what our name is and have our save name menu appear, where we can input our name and press enter or click save. If we click cancel, it should then crossfade transition to our default save menu. Setting this to switch to our regular save menu will make a little more sense once our action lists are set up, but obviously you can customize this however you'd like depending on your project and what you're trying to achieve with it. Now that we have everything set up in our custom save name menu, we need to change our default save menu. Our default save menu has an element that shows a list of all of our saves for our game. So when a player clicks on a save, we want them to be able to rename it to whatever they'd like as well. However, we also want whatever's input into the custom save name menu to replace the name of the save files that show up in this list. So in the Adventure Creator window, click Menu and select the default save menu. Click the Save's SavesList element and make sure that Save When Click On is unchecked. Where it says Action List on click, let's create a new action list. With this new action list selected, click on the inspector window and check the box that says Use Parameters. Let's create a new parameter called Slot Index. Set it as an integer and leave the default value at -1 so that when the first save is created, it'll start at a value of 0. This parameter and save index helps us and Adventure Creator to keep track of which save slot is being clicked on from the saves list, which will also help us know which save file to rename using the player's custom save name. When you switch back to Adventure Creator Editor, you should now see a box under the action list that gives our parameter that we just set. Make sure it's set to 0 slot index or whatever values that you've personally set for this parameter. Most of us use Adventure Creator so that we don't really need to understand how to code, but basically what this parameter does is it tells Adventure Creator that each save slot is assigned a number, which is why we set it to integer. It's then considered an index because it's a set of numbers that are in order. So setting the slot index value as 0 will make sure that if a player clicks on the third save slot file in this list, the slot index parameter will be set to 2, and Adventure Creator will know to overwrite the name for that save slot with the player's custom save name that they entered. Now we need a couple of variables that will let us reference this parameter that we made. Variables come in 4 basic types. We have integers, strings, bools, and floats. Integers are whole numbers, floats are decimal numbers, strings are text values, and bools are true or false statements. Adventure Creator lets us create 2 kinds of variables, global and local. For our purposes here, we want to create a couple of global variables that can be referenced anywhere at any time, including in ActionLists. Local variables, however, mean that the variable is saved as part of a scene and it can't be accessed outside of the current scene. Obviously, if we're saving a game, we want to be able to access these variables across different scenes within the game. So in our Adventure Creator editor, let's select the Variables Manager and create a new global variable. We'll name it SavesList and set its type to integer. To use this new variable, let's return to our action list that's attached to the Saves element in the default Save menu. We can now create a new action type set to Variable and Set. We made a global variable, so let's make sure it's set to global, and now we want to reference our SavesList variable. Make sure the new value is set to entered here. The method is setValue, and there should be a field underneath this that says statement equals. Click the little P button beside this field to automatically enter the value from the parameter that we set. In effect, this makes it so that when a player clicks on a slot within the saves list, Adventure Creator is going to assign that save file a number within our slot index. But what if our player is feeling a little uninspired and doesn't want to create a custom name for their save file? We should probably account for that as well. So let's make it so that when our box pops up for the player to enter their custom name, it appears with what the save slot's original name is, with the option to change it by typing in their own name if they want to. To do this, we need to go back into the variable manager in the editor and create another global variable called SaveName. Now this is going to be a text value, so we want to set the variable type to string. In our action list that's attached to the saves list, we can add another node with an action type that is variable, and we want to set it to global SaveName, which is our new global variable that we just made. Select set as menu element text, and then we want to type save as the menu name, saves as the element name, and for slot number, we'll click the little P button again to use the slot index parameter. Check the box to include the slot number offset and pre-processed tokens. This is all a long-winded way of telling Adventure Creator to just copy the name of the save slot that the player clicks on within the saves list element and save it to a variable that we can then reference. What we want to do is then reference this variable so that we can paste the save slot name into our input text box that appears on screen so that the player can choose to either change it to their own custom save name or just leave it as it is. Within this same action list that's attached to our saves list in the saves menu, add a new node with an action type set to menu and update content. Then we want to update our SaveName menu and the input element with the content type text from our global variable called SaveName. Now, we don't want a whole bunch of menus to be popping up on screen and confusing the player. So when our player clicks on the save slot, we want to turn off the save menu and turn on the SaveName menu so that the player can enter their custom save name. To do this, add a new node to the action list with the action type menu, change state, turn off menu. Let's turn off our save menu and check transition and wait till finish. Then, once this menu is turned off, let's create a new node with the action type menu, change state, turn on menu, and we will turn on our save name menu and check both boxes again. We need to head back to our new Save Name menu in the menu manager and click on the Save element to create an action list so that whatever our player inputs into the text field is saved into our Save Name variable so that it can be updated in our SavesList element. So create your new action list and create a new action type variable and set it to global, Save Name, set as menu element text. Our menu name is Save Name and the element is input. Make sure the slot is 0 and the pre-processing token is checked. This will set the variable save name as whatever text the player typed into the input box. Then create a new action type menu change state, turn off menu save name, and lastly, we need to create an action type save, save or load set to overwrite existing save. We're going to overwrite the save slot index from variable and set the integer to save slot index. The slot index already accounts for the menu's offset, so we can leave the next two fields blank. Make sure that update label is checked, followed by with custom label and pre-processing tokens. Now, for the custom label section, we need to enter the replacement token from our SaveName global string variable that we created. In my case, if I go to the Variables Manager and click the SaveName Variable, you'll see this replacement token value here under its properties. You can actually right-click to copy this value if you need to as well. Then we're going to paste it into the custom label section of our action list that's attached to our save element on our SaveName menu. When we press play, everything should work as intended. After Bugsy asks for our name, we should see our SaveName menu pop up, and the text should be the default save slot name. We can then type a custom name, press enter or click save, and when we press the escape key to open the regular save menu and click to save or load the game, we should now see our custom text as the name for our save file. Note that this action will only be possible when saving is possible. You can't save during cutscenes or conversations, and if you run into an error where saving isn't possible and the game is hiding the save function from your menu, you can type in the project search bar for the UI action list called Setup Pause Menu. Under the second node where it says Save Check, you can just delete the action for If Condition is Not Met node, and it should remove any errors that you get about the pause menu blocking the actions. Hopefully that helps. You might want to fool around with this and re-implement it into your game as needed. I find sometimes because the initial transition is actually a cutscene that it blocks this action, so mostly I had just turned it off for testing purposes. But do what you need to do to get this working in your game. If you have any questions or if you found some really fun ways to customize save files in your game using Adventure Creator, post them in the comment section below. We'll do our best to help you out if you have questions, and I will also post a link to some written documentation from Chris Burton, the developer of Adventure Creator, in the description of this video, so that you can follow along at your own pace or do any troubleshooting if needed. Most of this content was kind of a play off of that tutorial, but updated as needed since it's been a while, I think, from the documents being updated. But we also have a Discord if you'd like to join our little community of game developers and enthusiasts, which is linked in the description, as well as on the Cross Blossom channel page on YouTube. If you enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, tap the like button so that we know to keep making more. And if you've made it this far, you might as well subscribe to become a fellow game dev journey companion so that we can help each other out on our adventures. Stay curious and inspired. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.